so much for coming back and paying us a visit here at the Frat House on our 97th straight week of 5 Minutes at the Frat House, brought to you by Frat House Sports with Frat House Mike and Sidekick. And as always, our purpose here is to take a look at all the relevant sports happenings from the past few days.
And cheerleaders.
Well, occasionally. And this week, the season's coming for that. And this week, we're even going to touch on a few sports we haven't touched on in quite a while.
Yep.
According, though, to the calendars that I've seen, most NFL training camps open up in about 10 to 12 days, Sidekick. In fact, your Rams have rookies reporting in 10 days. Veterans on July 24th. Are you ready for some football?
I can't wait.
10 days. That's all we got for most things.
And I'm sure my girlfriend can't wait for me to be running fantasy NASCAR and fantasy football.
Yeah, well, good
She'll
luck
be
with,
so
yeah,
happy
good luck
with
that, dude. Good luck with that. All right. Look, trash talk, it starts already. Listen, it won't be long now until all of our conversations move to football. And in fact, we've got our roundtable coming up in just 3 weeks. Our annual preseason roundtable comes up in just 3 weeks from this evening. That'll be aired. In the meantime, though, let's open it up with some sports on wheels. How about that? And that means it's NASCAR time. And last Saturday evening, we visited Daytona for the second time of the year with the Coke Zero 400. And it was typical Daytona with average speeds of 154 miles per hour, 6 cautions, 5 of them from wrecks, 18 lead changes. Now, the previous week, Matt Kenseth set the high water mark for the most wins this season at 4. But not to be outdone, 94 laps leader Jimmy Johnson came right back at Daytona and tied Kenseth and got his 4th of the season as well. Others who came in the top 5 included Tony Stewart. How about that one? Here we go.
Rebounding well.
Here we go with his 4th top 5 came in 2nd. Kevin Harvick got his 5th top 5, came in 3rd. Clint Boyer with his 6th of the season top 5.
And honorable mention.
Honorable mention?
Michael Waltrip.
Was in
5th.
Was he in 5th? Okay. All right. I guess I had my notes wrong. All right. Thank you. I'm pleased you corrected me on that one because I had Dale in 5th. Actually, Dale is in 5th on the leaderboard, which we're going to take a look at right now because we only have 8 races remaining in the regular season prior to the chase. And what does that do to the leaderboard with all those kinds of a few little mix-ups going on right now? Well, Jimmy Johnson stays at the top of the list, but he's now 49 points. He's starting to build that up there ahead of our new number 2, and that's Clint Boyer. Carl Edwards drops back to number 3. Kevin Harvick stays at 4, and there we go. Now I'm corrected. Dale Jr. sneaks in to number 5. What's going on with the rest of the leaderboard that you saw? What jumped off the board as far as movers, losers, whatever?
We've had people go in the top 10 and out of the top 10. And just give you an update on the wild cards this week.
Yep.
Martin Truex Jr. snuck up there into, actually didn't really sneak up in there, he fell down. But he's now a wild card in 11th, pushing Casey Kane back to 12th for the second wild card. Now, interesting to note, from 13th through 25th, none of those drivers have a win.
Right.
So, you know.
We got 2 in the top 5 without wins.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's getting interesting.
But our biggest losers of the week were last week's biggest mover of the week. Joey didn't get any respect this week, Logano. And then Paul Menard, both dropping 5 spots.
Yep.
And biggest movers this week were Tony Stewart, who moved up 6 spots into 10th, and Kurt Busch moved up 5 spots into 9th.
Correct. Yep. Looks like Kurt, if he keeps running the way he has, he's going to make that. He's going to make the chase. There's no doubt about it. One little issue I wanted to bring up real quick. Prior to last Saturday's Daytona race, it was reported that NASCAR had confiscated illegal parts from 16 Sprint Cup teams, and then an additional 15 nationwide teams. A total of 31 teams they went through. I mean, that's an astounding number. Now, apparently the parts that were in question were spacer bars that support the hinge of the roof flaps. Now, many of the teams apparently had these spacers modified in various ways. Well, when this was reported I predicted up on our Frat House Sports Facebook page, I predicted that we would be hearing about some rather widespread penalties come Tuesday, which is normally the day that NASCAR hands down penalties. This week, however, it didn't happen. And as soon as it didn't happen, my antenna went up. Instead, they held off their announcement until Wednesday, when they came out and said there would be no penalties to any of the teams. And in their ruling, NASCAR's official statement read, based upon our inspection and subsequent review, it was our determination that the functionality and safety aspects of the roof flaps were not compromised and the on-track competition would not be impacted. All right, Sidekick, question for you. The way that NASCAR has responded, particularly this year, as quickly as they have, as deliberately as they have, in situations like this, did this come as any surprise to you? It did to me, I must be honest.
I guess it came a little bit of a surprise. You know, that nothing came of it.
Exactly.
But then again, I was a little surprised. It was, you know, I was kind of mixed about it.
Okay.
About it because, you know, I thought, oh, they're going to throw the book at these
exactly.
people,
That's what I thought.
You know, and stuff like that. And you know, let's real quick. Let me run down the Sprint Cup teams
that were affected.
Right. And just think about the teams. Okay.
I think I know where you're going. Go ahead.
Greg Biffle.
Yep.
Carl Edwards, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Trevor Bayne, Eric Amarola, Marcus Ambrose, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Matt Kenseth, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Michael Waltrip, Clint Boyer, Martin Truex Jr., Jamie McMurray, and Casey Mears.
Right.
Okay? So those are the Sprint Cup teams that got caught. Now, these flaps are supplied by a division of Roush Industries.
Correct.
Okay? So, now, in doing some research into this, supposedly the flaps are one of those, just like the engine, one of those areas you can't muck with.
Right.
But they seldom check it. But they have, for whatever reason, this race they checked them and they found all these to be out of line. While I was doing some research, I came across a story on Yahoo Sports written by blogger Nick Bromberg. He's suggesting, conspiracy theory here, folks, that NASCAR didn't want to penalize racers in the chase right behind Jimmy Johnson because it would look like favoritism, because there's already accusations of NASCAR favoring Jimmy Johnson and Hendrick Motorsports. So he's saying that there's no penalty because they didn't want it to look like right before the chase there was favoritism giving advantage to Jimmy Johnson.
And we let him off the hook.
So there was no penalties.
Okay, let me ask you personally, are you buying into any of that potentiality? I mean, it sounds to me like by virtue of bringing it up, you're saying, well, there might be some credence to this.
Well, okay. As I was sitting down and, you know, and I read this and I sat there and I thought about it and I'm like, yeah, to your typical fan, you know, it sounds like a plausible story.
There's something screwy around here.
NASCAR's not in bed with Jimmy. First of all, as much as I don't like Jimmy Johnson winning all the time, and I find it actually hurts NASCAR by having him being so dominant and not having other drivers. I don't think NASCAR's in bed with the guy, or Hendrick Motorsports for that matter. Okay. Second of all, while yes, this may change some standings and stuff depending on how they penalize people, it's not going to. It would affect if it dropped people out of wild card or out of the chase. Yes, then it affects the chase. But if they went with a slap on the hands, okay, it wouldn't do necessarily that much damage to the people that are trying to catch Jimmy. And if you remember, when we get to the chase, the points reset.
Right.
And then you get everybody's set at a certain level, and then you get bonus points for the number of wins that you had during the season. And that's how you start the chase. So once you get into the chase, it doesn't affect your points. in the chase. It's just it may impact somebody leading up into the chase. Because it's starting to get tight with the points, and we're starting to see
the number of races that we've got
you have
left.
a bad if somebody has a bad race one weekend, you see them drop.
Right.
So it's a little tight getting into the chase. But I don't honestly really necessarily buy into that story.
I'm not sure if I necessarily do either. I mean, not based on the contention that it had anything to do with Johnson. But one of the things that I did bring up on our Frat House Sports Facebook page last night, when I brought the decision made by NASCAR, and I posted that story up there, one of the things I did bring up was, isn't it interesting how when you look through the list, as you just read it off to us, there are so many big names in there, many of them whom are fighting to get into the chase. Isn't it interesting how all of a sudden NASCAR stands down? And so I was kind of building in a little bit of a conspiracy theory myself, particularly when you take a look at somebody like Keselowski. Had Keselowski's team been nailed one more time, Sidekick, he's already been nailed, what, twice this year?
Yep.
Had they been nailed even one more time, I mean, that puts a fork in that team right there. They're done.
Yeah.
They're not making it.
And he's got no wins.
Right. And I mean, we talked about it last week here, what it's going to take for him to get into that. So it seemed to me that perhaps maybe there was a little bit of ambivalence, let's say, on the part of NASCAR to let's not lower the boom in light of all the different players that we've got involved in this one. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just looked a little
If
odd.
anything, it smacks to favoritism to Toyota and Ford.
Yes, you're right there. Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. All right.
Because that's basically, if you look at the racers, it's the Ford and the Toyotas.
Yep.
All
right, we got race 19 coming up, number 19. There was one other race I want to bring up. I think I might save it for next week, though. We got race 19 coming up, and we're heading up to New England this Sunday to New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Coverage of that race can be found at 1 p.m. over on TNT. Oh, can we hear some applause? This is the last TNT race we're going to get. All right, last one of the year.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Listen, we've got a 1 mile track here, Sidekick, with a history, as I was looking it over this afternoon, that kind of reflects that anyone and everyone can win at this one. I mean, this seems to be a little bit wide open. You really don't necessarily see major patterns. So what do you got for us as far as fantasy?
Well, fantasy is we're heading up north.
Yep.
To Loudon. So, picks for this week. Uncle Mark's going to love me again. Top of the list, Clint Boyer.
All righty.
The only driver with a perfect record of top 10s on short flat tracks this year.
Okay.
$27. Denny Hamlin, name we don't hear often.
Wow.
He won last year in the fall race and came in second in this race last year.
Okay.
And he's, as we know, he's pretty good on short flat tracks. $25. Another name that we haven't heard a whole lot of, Jeff Gordon. He's got 3 consecutive top 6 finishes at Loudon. $23.75.
And he's in a go situation right
Yes,
now as
he's
well.
in a, yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Eric Amarola.
Yeah.
This track type favors Amarola's driving style. $17.25.
Okay.
And what the hell? Let's throw David Rudiman in there again. $6.25. We got got a couple bucks to spare. Let's throw a bone out there to Mr. Rudiman.
Just don't park.
Now, fantasy alert though.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
And I'm going to be honest. I don't have the complete whole story on this. I was trying to find an update, but as I was researching different stuff, I came across an article from the 22nd of June that said that team owner, I believe John Finch, is giving up his team, and is effective July 15th, was no longer going to be running Phoenix Racing and was looking for a possible suitor to buy them.
Immediately?
Otherwise, he would close up shop ahead of the chase. But where this really pans out is we were just talking about our boy working his way up into the chase. Kurt Busch
Yep.
races for Phoenix Racing.
Right.
Only
Right.
Oh, only nationwide. Okay, only nationwide.
Right.
So I was trying to find an update to see if, because he had a couple suitors that were interested in buying, but I haven't.
Terry Labonte, big name.
Terry was. That's not the one I saw. There was another name. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. But the driver was Alger. Anyway, but I couldn't find any update on that story, whether or not, because he said, the date was July 15th, and we're
there.
This would be the last race.
Exactly.
So, just interesting,
Something to keep your eye on, I guess, really more for next week.
Yeah.
As we go.
Yeah, when you're talking about fantasy rosters and stuff. So,
All
but
right.
if I find an update, I'll put it up on Frat House Sports.
Absolutely. Another reason to go check us out over on Facebook. All right, Frat House Sports over on Facebook. Keep in touch with that. I've had so many of our fantasy folks come back and say, "You guys are right on top of things. You're always right there with the most recent news to alert us if we're playing fantasy in NASCAR." And we try to be there not just for that, but for everything. So,
Yep.
listen, real quick. Let's stay with some sports on wheels, huh?
Yes.
For just a couple more moments, all right? We're not going to take long with it. We've completed what? The 11th or 12th stage?
12 stages.
We have now completed 12 stages of the 100th. Am I right? Okay. Because I'm a novice at this.
Yeah.
Tour de France. And at
Yes.
that, I'm going to turn it over to you. Give us a rundown of what's happening with that event. Yeah, we got 12, so we only have 9 stages left.
Oh, wee wee.
All right. I got that right.
More doping than MLB. Oh, yes. And, it's really, I joke, but it's really sad, though. We're going into the centennial of the Tour de France.
Yeah.
And it's overshadowed by all this doping.
You're right, it is.
And it's been overshadowed for years. But it's such a shame that, here they are celebrating their 100th year of running it.
Yeah.
And, everybody's talking about, did this person dope or did that person dope?
Yeah,
You've got people coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, I doped.
I did it. I did it even before Lance, right? Well, not that I did, but I'm hearing other cyclists. But I'm saying, you make an excellent point. I'm not a big cyclist follower, per se. But I got to tell you, anymore, when you hear the phrase Tour de France, it's kind of like it suddenly has a stigma attached to it.
Yep.
And I sit there going, who cares? But anyhow, give us a rundown.
So here we
where
go.
we go.
So Team Sky's Chris Froome has retained his lead of 3 minutes and 25 seconds over Movistar's Alejandro Valverde, with Alberto Contador of Saxo Tinkoff staying just 4 minutes. I know, don't you love these names? And they roll off the tongue.
Maybe they roll off yours. Go ahead.
Well, maybe that's because I'm reporting on it.
Oh, there you go.
Anyway,
job,
Alberto is
Shut up and start
under 4
talking.
minutes behind, with 12 stages complete and 9 stages remaining, with 1 rest day. So we basically got 10 days.
Now, Frome is leading still after 12 stages?
Yes.
Okay. Was Frome the one that actually came out the other day and indicated that he was doused with urine? Was he the one that was involved in that, or was that someone else?
No,
it was
that
an English. It was an English.
That was Cavendish.
Okay.
I think it was Cavendish that was.
And then apparently Lance Armstrong came out afterward and said, "Well, this kind of thing is commonplace apparently at the Tour de France."
Yep. Happened. Yep.
Okay, so it was not the leader. I thought perhaps maybe it was.
No,
There's
no,
no
it wasn't the
Americans
leader.
in the top 5 right now, right?
No.
Do we have any in the
So-
top 10?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure either. I only looked
We're-
at the top 5 today.
So, but now, when you think about it, 3 minutes and 25 seconds doesn't sound like a whopping time, but that's a lot of time over the course of this race. It's hard to make up. They've basically almost crowned Froome the winner of the Tour de France. They said he's going to have to wreck or something in order for him to lose at this
9
point.
stages left. We're better than halfway through. It's a 2,000-mile race, and they do have one more rest day before the end.
Yes, they do.
So,
So
All right.
we've got a couple sprint days coming up, a couple
Right.
mountain days to go through
Right.
before we get to Paris. So
All right. Listen, let's stick with you here for a moment.
sure.
And we're gonna go check out another sport we haven't looked at in about 8-9 weeks, and that's Major League Soccer. Yes, we do have Major League Soccer going on. I was mentioning before how we're kind of in the dog days of summer. There's not much sports going on. Look at all the things we're bringing up to you.
Yep.
Major League Soccer. How are things going with our American
It
football
always
clubs?
seems like I follow the lesser.
Yeah, you're following
You know,
all
I'm bike racing and soccer.
closet European
you know,
here.
You know.
So how are things going right now in our American football clubs?
Well, all right. So Eastern Conference, we've got the Montreal Impact leading with 31 points. They're 9-4-4, followed by Sporting Kansas City, 30 points. Excuse me, 8-5-6. These teams have been kind of up there the whole time.
Yeah.
When we go to the Western Conference, we've got Real Salt Lake at 34 points. They're 10-5-4. They're now up atop. You know, for a while there it was FC Dallas. FC Dallas has dropped to second with 31 points. They're 8-4-7. My Philadelphia Union is in fourth place in the East. They're 27 points, 7-6-6. So they're above the line to make the playoffs so
gonna say,
far.
thank you.
And the MLS All-Star Game is coming up July 31st at 9 p.m.
There you go. Where's that being played?
You know, honestly, I don't know off the
Okay,
top of my head.
no problem. No problem. If you go to Major League Soccer, Google that, you'll find the
MLSoccer.com.
MLsoccer.com. Right.
If you go to MLS, it's a realtor.
But But the Union have played better since we last reported, as you pointed out. They're in fourth
Yes.
and have come above the line, so they would be eligible for the playoffs.
We've
if
got
in
a
fact
game
it were to
tomorrow
happen
night.
Tomorrow.
We've got
Right.
a game tomorrow night at home against Chivas. One problem we have is one of our stars has been called up for the U.S. team, so he's not he's now with the U.S. team for a little while they're playing their round of games. So we don't have his services, and that would be our leading scorer, Jack McInerney,
Ooh.
the young stud.
Yep. Yep.
So
Alrighty, well, we'll check in on Major League Soccer again in the next couple of weeks. Let's go over and take a look at our Diamonds. We're mid-season right now, as next week we'll be entertained with the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. Well, if that's the sort of thing that entertains you. And through all the conversations this past week about, well, who made the roster and who should have made it and who did make it and who got snubbed. We've also had conversations this week about who will be buyers and who will be sellers, as we are now less than 3 weeks away from the trade deadline. But let's take a look real quick at teams that we know for a fact probably, in fact, I think we know it by now, they will not be sellers. And those are ones that are leading divisions. Over in the American League, the Boston Red Sox are still 3.5 games ahead of the enter the Tampa Bay Rays, who have won 7 in a row and are 9-1 in their last 10. Have we brought up the Tampa Bay Rays even once
I
this
was going to
season?
say, where did they come from?
Yeah, they are in second place in the AL East. And take a look here, the Yankees have been relegated to 4th in that division. In the Central, it's still the Detroit Tigers, now 3.5 games in front of the Cleveland Indians. And in the West, the Oakland A's stay just a half game in front of the Texas Rangers.
Yep.
In the National League, the Atlanta Braves, 5 games in front of the Washington Nationals. In the Central, your St. Louis Cardinals have taken over the top spot once again. When you took a break for about 2 weeks, huh?
Yeah,
Is that what it was? Yeah.
Yeah, we lost the
Lulling
lead.
them into a false sense of security? Is that what
Well,
it
it helped that we had back-to-back series with the Marlins and the Astros, and now we're playing the Cubs.
Okay. The Cardinals, a game and a half in front of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Don't count the Pirates out just yet.
Oh,
and
no.
in the West, the Arizona Diamondbacks are a game and a half in front of the Colorado Rockies. That hasn't changed a whole heck of a lot. There we go. There's our round the league in divisions.
It's time again for Frat House Mike's Screwball Stories.
Well, the stories this week have a little bit of everything in there. We're even going to include, sprinkle in a bit of criminality, maybe. And
Wait, we're going to talk about Aaron Hernandez?
no. That's we'll
my
save
bad.
that for the next season. And a controversial topic from a legendary loudmouth as we close it out with our stories. But let's start it off with this one. I would have thought that this actually would have come from a team like the Miami Marlins, not the New York Mets. Now, look, you and I both know that the schedule for Major League Baseball, they come up with that months and months and months before the schedule starts, right? Before the season even begins, right? Sure. And once the schedule comes out, you've got your marketing people in all of your teams. They're sitting there coming up with their promotional schedules, right? And they're doing that months and months and months in advance. Well, that's what's got me kind of scratching my head. Later this month, the Mets had scheduled to have a Native American night. Now, there's no problem there. They even went so far as to reach out to the Native American community. So far, so good. But the question is, as we just pointed out, with all the months that everybody had to prepare this and plan these sorts of things, why nobody in the Mets higher-ups might have said, I don't think hosting Native American night when the Braves are in town is a good idea. Did you hear what I said?
You're mocking me, aren't you?
The Braves. Really? Okay. Now, instead of just quietly making changes to the promotional schedule, the Mets actually brought more attention to their faux pas by making public statements about scaling back all of the traditional activities and then applying it to the Braves, claiming that the Mets didn't want to embarrass the Braves or make them feel awkward because of their team's icon. Huh?
There seems to be no sign of intelligent
You're not kidding
life
me.
anywhere.
Are you getting the idea why I kind of thought that this would have been a screw-up the Marlins would have made? Seriously?
Yeah.
Mets, seriously? Just use... all right.
Well, and then to make the matters worse, they pissed off the Native American community because Native American community was like, it's okay.
They're all set to go. They were ready to go.
We spent months planning this.
Exactly.
We'll roll with it. You know, okay, it's the Braves. You know, we'll roll with it. And then the Mets were dragging their feet, you know.
Because they were all concerned about the PC
The Native
issues.
American community said, well, you know what, okay, fine, we're out, we're done.
Right.
So then the Mets come back and they say, well, you know what, we're going to change it to another night for you. And they
At
just
that point, they said,
sorry,
hell with it.
we're done with you.
oh, my goodness. All because the Mets were just concerned about the political correctness issues, which weren't an issue until they actually brought...
Yep.
You see where I'm going with it? Okay. All right. Anyhow.
It's the Mets.
All right. Let's go take a look real quick. Let's go south. Take a look at the Washington Nationals, and let's go take a look at the shortstop, Ian Desmond. He's actually been having a really pretty good season, but not too recently. He actually has been a little bit perturbed with his own personal performance recently. So the other night in the first inning, he grounded into a double play. Clearly noticed in this picture here behind me, clearly noticed in the first inning, he went to plate with just a tad bit of chin here, okay? However, when he came back up to the plate in the third inning, it was clear he was clean shaven. How did that work out for Desmond Slump? He went 0 for 2 clean shaven. You know, I thought the only ones that were that superstitious were NHL goaltenders. I don't know. All right. This one should get everybody going. By now, most people know the story of how Anna Benson showed up at the home of her estranged husband, 38-year-old former Pirates, Mets, and Orioles pitcher Chris Benson. She showed up at his door. Mind you, they're estranged. Showed up there with a revolver, expanding baton, knife, hatchet, and taser, demanding $30,000. Perhaps, though, part of the most bizarre part of the story was that she showed up at his door wearing a bulletproof vest.
Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of fetish is that?
Now, when she was asked later about the vest, she claimed she was starting a bulletproof vest company and she had to field mold a new model to her body. Wacko.
Yeah.
Wacko. Chris, get far away, far away. All right, last but not least, always controversial former pitcher John Rocker. Well, he's had his mouth get himself in enough trouble many, many, many times before in the past. This week, though, his comments on a radio station had many, many eyebrows raising, some of them in favor, some of them going, huh? When discussing PED usage in Major League Baseball, particularly back in the day when he played, he said, quote, honestly, and this may go against what some people think from an ethical standpoint, I think it was a better game. Was there anything more entertaining than 1998? I don't care how each man got there. Was there anything more entertaining than 1998, watching Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire chase 61 home runs? That was a mesmerizing time for every baseball fan out there. The people were getting their money's worth. Well, from my perspective, while he may be off his rocker, his comments certainly have generated a lot of sports talk. Kind of like, why don't we just legalize and tax illegal drugs for recreational use? It does bring up an interesting conversation. I mean, back before we knew any different, were you following that as rapidly?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you
now that we know differently,
you would tune in every day and watch both games because
be
they would go back and forth.
Back and forth.
You know,
but we thought it was real, and now that we don't know that it's real,
still real. It was still real. They were still hitting the home runs. Were they enhanced? Absolutely, but they were still hitting them home runs. I'm sorry.
Okay, so
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines.
From the standpoint of his comment with regard to it being more entertaining, he's accurate. It was entertaining.
I agree with his comments. Absolutely.
Okay, but from the standpoint of it being legal and right.
No, it wasn't.
Okay. All right, so we're
and should the record
see,
stand?
we were duped. That's the difference. See, he can sit there and say that we were entertained all we want, but we as a fan base were duped, and that's where it's wrong. Do you think that we would have do you think that we would have been as entertained had we known the real truth at the time?
I don't know. I would have. I enjoyed watching them two guys go at it, hitting home run for home run, regardless of whether they were juicing or not.
See, I would agree. I would agree with you that his comments are correct that it was entertaining, but
Yes,
we didn't know any different. If we had known, I think that there would have been a large majority.
If they were both known, like they were, Ryan Braun or
that's not
what's
known.
his name, or what's his name on the but people, come on.
Okay, but
people,
it's the same.
When you talk about Ryan Braun,
It's
people
still the same
automatically.
situation. It's not known. Go ahead. Who is the other one you're thinking of?
I was A-Rod.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's not
Okay.
known either. There's no damning evidence.
There was no cloud over them of PED at the time. So even if it wasn't for a
Right,
record,
I guess.
the fact that they were going back and forth, for most.
There was suspicion that something was wrong. There was a lot of talk, if you recall at the time, that the ball was juiced. That's what the conversation was. So there was a lot of, the antennae were up by some analysts going, wait a minute, something just doesn't look right here. If you go back and take a look at the records from 1998, it's not, everybody points to Sosa and McGwire, but if you look down the line, there were numerous guys that were way out of orbit in what they were doing home run-wise. So there was a conversation about, there were some people that were sounding an alarm. They weren't sounding the drug alarm, the performance enhancement drug alarm.
I mean, I've even gone as far as saying, I wish we could have a PED league. You know what I mean? If there was enough players, because I would love to see. Well, no, I'd love to see a league that was set up where, hey, the door's open. You guys can.
And would they be sponsored by pharmacies?
Sure, absolutely.
We got the CVS League, we got the Walgreens League.
But I just think it would be interesting to see guys that were it's like in bodybuilding. You've got the natural bodybuilders, and then you've got the not so natural bodybuilders. So it might be kind of interesting to see a bunch of guys that are enhanced doing
enhanced things.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe adjust the ballpark a little bit. I don't know.
All right, that's our baseball chat for this week. We'll get back to more I'm sure screwy stuff next week. Let's get out of here by taking a look at our Frat House Sports Facebook post of the week. Let's take a look at the post that got the most action this past week, and that was a humorous meme that, was posted up there by Uncle Mark. How do you say Tony Romo in Spanish? Mark Sanchez. There it was. Humorous stuff right there. Got the most action. As we're moving closer and closer to football, so we're going to start seeing more and more of that kind of stuff. We encourage all of you, please, get out to our Frat House Sports Facebook page and stay in touch with us. That way, that's the easiest way to do it. One other thing, too, while you're doing that, you have one more last evening, at least for this first round. I submitted a video to 97.5, the Fanatic FM and ESPN affiliate right here in the Philadelphia region. I submitted a video to them for their Dream Job contest. And from all indications right now, it appears, we think, that we have the #1 spot right now for the total number of likes out of well over 100.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Announcements are expected to be coming down tomorrow, Friday, when this will actually be airing, so today, between 4 and 6 p.m. on 97.5, the Fanatic. Announcements will be coming down as to who the 3 semifinalists will be. And we're certainly keeping our fingers crossed right now and hoping that one of them might be myself. You can go out to 97.5, the Fanatic, look for the Dream Job entry from Mike from Eagleville, give it a look, and then scroll down to the bottom and give me a thumbs up. That would be a big, big help. We might have to continue doing this actually for the next couple of weeks until we get to the finals, because we've got, if we get past round 1, we go to round 2, and then there's the final round. So we still have 2 more rounds to go. All right? All right. Last but not least, I would ask you all please to go out and give our friends Jim and Carl a look-see, please, over at CLW83.com. Great, great content they've got over there, original content. In fact, Jim is taping as we speak right now. He is taping his new Touch 'em All program right before the All-Star break as we got coming in here on Monday. So check out all their great content over there. They have sports content, but they also have other kind of content. They've got political content. And then, of course, they also have graciously offered to continue to rebroadcast all of our 5 minutes at the Frat House right here. So we appreciate that. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Carl. Everybody else, please get out there, give a look-see at CLW83.com. And then last but not least, look for us over at FratHouseSports.net. Big things coming. Going to be making some big, big changes to that as we go. Probably some new looks coming to it as we approach our second anniversary, 3rd year of Frat House Sports right here.
Yep.
All right. One more thing I'm going to ask you to do. You know what that is. You got to keep us real, you got to keep us live, and you got to keep us going. We'll see you next week. Take care.
What happened on the Carl Edwards stop a moment ago? We showed it to you going to break. Colin Pawsey right here.
Yeah, he's just
Front
clean
carrier.
in the grill, but boy, to a driver, and he get his foot caught underneath that splitter.
Yeah.
And, you know, for a driver, normally when the jack is dropped, that's his signal to go. So, you know, Carl Edwards did what he's supposed to do, but he just didn't quite get out of the way quick enough.
Hard to believe, but he limped away and is doing just fine now, Marty.
Yeah, he limped away and he just did that pit stop again, Adam. And actually what happened is his left shoe got caught underneath the splitter of the car and actually had the left shoe. The shoe actually came apart. Look, the shoe came apart, and that saved him right there. The shoe came apart. He was able to walk away just fine. And you know what they were doing? He was pulling that tape we've been talking about for 10 minutes off of the grill, trying to get Carl Edwards' car a little bit cooler, but thank goodness to the shoe, everything was all good.